Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing The Paradox Planet, which is the first part of two parts, the Legacy of Death being the other. I haven't listened to it just yet. This was sent to me as a piece of fan mail by Robert, who I really appreciate. Robert also sent me the Triumph of Sutek, and he knows I'm a big fan of Season 17. I love that Douglas style sense of humor, so he thought I would enjoy these as they're very much kind of in that Season 17 vein. It has the Season 17 Tardis team with the 4th Doctor, Romana 2, and K9. And I really appreciate Robert sending these. Now, I have finished The Pirate Planet. It's interesting because these two stories together are basically like a classic Doctor Who 4-parter. It's interesting that they've split them into separate stories. Basically, the first two parts make up the Paradox Planet, and the last two parts make up Legacy of Death. But since they are billed as separate stories, even though the cliffhanger for 2 is going to lead right into 3, I'm sure. The cliffhanger from the second part of this will lead into the first part of that one. Much like when I watch a classic Who story for the first time, I like to do reviews by parts, just to kind of explain how I feel as I'm going through the story. I liked the two parts that make up this, because this is two-part. It's kind of like the Suntarn Experiment, The Awakening. It's a two-parter, and then Legion of Death is also a two-parter. Legacy of Death, what is it? Legacy of Death is also a two-parter. I had a lot of fun with this one. First off, Tom Baker. This was I think recorded in 2014 and released in 2016. I did listen to the little extras at the end of it. Tom Baker sounds like he hasn't aged a day since he played the 4th Doctor. I don't know what it is about his voice, but I think even now, his voice still sounds like it did back when he was playing Doctor Who in the 70s and 80s. His voice just does not age. So he slips right back into being the Doctor, especially with the dialogue written. He just slips into the role effortlessly. I'm assuming that is John Leeson back as K9. It sounds just like John Leeson as K9. Romana's voice, as she has gotten older, does sound a little different, a little deeper maybe, but it's one of those things, 10 seconds in, you're like, you've pushed past it and you've moved on. It's not a big deal. It is Lala Ward voicing Romana, and she is fine. And Romana is written well in this story too. She's written as a Time Lord, very smart and capable, which I like. Romana doesn't always get written like that, and she is very well here. And so is K9. All three of our principal cast are written very well in this. This one has a fun idea, kind of like something Douglas Adams would do, where the Doctor ends up separated from Romana because the TARDIS collides with another time-traveling machine, and with them colliding, Romana ends up on the other ship. So they're separated most of the story. K9's with the Doctor at some points, K9's with Romana at some points, and it's basically about this planet that is at war, but it's the future and the past at war with each other over about 1,000-year time period. So it's almost like how you have in a standard story 2 different planets at war, except here it's the same planet at war. It's just 2 different time zones with about 1,000-year gap in between them. And that's done really well, where the past is kind of a nice place and the future is kind of a desolate wasteland. It kind of reminds me of Day of the Daleks, actually. If there's any classic Who story I can compare it to, it's Day of the Daleks. But in this one, you do have both factions, the past and the future, that know each other as an invading and is actively coming up with plans to stop each other. Now, the people from the future have to be careful when they come to the past, because they don't want to accidentally kill anybody, because they are trying not to make changes in the timeline. They come back to collect these really neat crystals that they can use to power things, and to collect endangered animals that are extinct in their time in the future. But when they come across resistance fighters, they only stun them because they can't risk killing any of their ancestors. Meanwhile, in the past, they haven't discovered time travel yet. One of the scientists is kind of on the brink of it. So they've done things like plant bombs underground, because in the future, everybody lives underground because the world's kind of desolate. So they plant bombs underground, but then don't prime them to go off for 1,000 years. So they're hidden there underground, undetectable for 1,000 years. So they're each fighting in their own way. It's got some classic Who alumni in it. One of the guys from Kinda is in it. The guy who played Hindle, I believe. is in this. Also, the actor who plays Duggan in City of Death, and you guys know I love Duggan. He's awesome. He plays a character in this. I didn't realize he's also in Mysterious Planet, but it mentions he's also in Mysterious Planet. He's in this as well, playing a very different character from Duggan. He plays the scientist in the past, I believe, that's kind of on the verge of creating time travel. And of course, you do kind of wonder if these two having their war between each other is what causes the desolation in the future in the first place. Kind of like what we had with Day of the Daleks, where the guerrilla fighters from the future inadvertently caused that future. So I kind of wonder if that's something that'll come into play later. I am enjoying the guest cast. It's always nice to have Classic Who alums snuck into stuff like this. But the rest of the cast are doing fine. I really like the one woman in the past who's, I believe her brief was she's a very trigger-happy person, and she comes across, the actress nails that very well. She's really neat. It's interesting, the Doctor and Romana are both going into the future and the past a little bit, and they end up in the future just to find out everyone knows who they are because there's this giant computer that they treat kind of like a messiah. It's got acolytes and everything. And they're like, praise, the Doctor has showed up at the appointed time. The Doctor's like, what? It has a couple really neat cliffhangers, with the first one with basically K9 being located in a bomb, having been stored there for 1,000 years. It's pretty interesting. I enjoyed the cliffhangers. It's not quite Douglas Adams season 17. It's not quite that timey-wimey silliness that he does, but it definitely feels like the Williams era more than just the cast. It definitely has that Williams era feel to it. And there is definitely that hint of zany comedy in there, along with coming up with a story idea that is silly and creative at the exact same time. That is a really good way to describe this story. It has this almost absurdness to it, while also being extremely genius. You know, just the past and the future at war with each other and declaring war on it. I love that idea. I wouldn't have come up with that idea. I found it a very enjoyable watch. I definitely found it a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to listening to Legacy of Death. Again, I liked the performance. Tom Baker he slips back into the Fourth Doctor like he's never been away from it. His voice sounds just like he did in the show, and he has this enthusiasm for the role. All of the main cast do. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes, because it is a lot of fun. I love the concept. I love the execution. The incidental music's also really good. I want to mention that. The incidental music has also been really, really nice. And it's all coming together really well. If the second part lives up, the second story, which is basically parts 3 and 4 of a standard 4-parter, lives up to parts 1 and 2, I'm going to be a very happy camper. So I do want to give Robert another thank you for sending this, because I have very much enjoyed it so far. Have you ever listened to The Paradox Planet? And what do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, I do have my P.O. box down there. Check that out. It's in the description of the video. Links to my Amazon wish list are down there. Links to my Amazon UK wish list are down there as well. I do update those fairly often. If you want to support me on my Patreon, there's a link down there. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Sam Venning, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.